Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The last episode of Ahsoka dropped for us last night, and it was a really interesting one that's going to leave us here speculating up until a potential season 2 that I would be totally shocked if it wasn't to happen. We had some good moments in this episode, and a few moments that to me didn't necessarily hit so hard, but that's what this breakdown is for. So if you enjoyed Ahsoka and want to speculate more about what's to come in this story, please make sure to hit that subscribe button with notifications on, and let's just jump straight into this breakdown. So, spoilers ahead if you haven't seen the last episode of Ahsoka. So we start with Thrawn planning the end of his time on Peridea with Morgan Elsbeth, sending 2 TIE fighters out to distract Ahsoka and everyone else. I wasn't able to cover last week's episodes, but Thrawn's tactics to me really fell short, especially as a big fan of Timothy Zawns' books. And in this episode, I had a few more gripes with just how Thrawn seems to be in this show, but more to that later. In the beginning of this episode, it was pretty much confirmed too that Enoch isn't particularly anything special, just a communications person, it feels like. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of his design in the first place, which I know is definitely a controversial take, but with his introduction and what we were eventually to see with the undead stormtroopers, he was going to be of more importance, or even the distraction or sacrifice that Morgan Elsbeth ended up becoming. I mean, it just feels like another Marok situation where you've made a really cool character to get a couple of action figure sales, and that's it. But I guess you need that. Speaking of Morgan in this scene, we also get to see her be promoted to what I think was a Night Mother, and was given the Blade of Talzin. And I'm not too sure if that's related or belonged to Mother Talzin, or the name Talzin just has a bigger meaning than just, her, the mother we saw in the Clone Wars. But Diana Lee in Santo hinted a few months ago that she was constantly training for a new big fight scene for Elsbeth, so it was pretty clear to me once she was given this sword that the episode would probably be the last of her, and it's kind of a shame. But to talk about that later, breaking down their fight, here we get our title card: the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, a nod to the novel The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. We then get to see Ahsoka's ship flying over the top of the crab people, and it only made me scratch my head. I understand they want to protect the crab people, but leaving them by themselves is their best option, and especially the fact that they only had such little time to actually get to Thrawn, it just made it a little too silly for me. Like, I know it was so Ezra could build his lightsaber, but how long were they there for? Could he have done that while they were flying? I mean, I don't know. It was just a little bit silly for me. To me, it just kind of felt like it was chucking in a place to put a scene of Thrawn's Chimera just shooting down the downfire on, Sabine, Ahsoka, and Ezra. But within that, the scene of Ezra building his lightsaber was so cool to see, especially with the nod to Kanan, with Ezra even making his lightsaber very similar, even with the blue blade Kanan had used before his death. It's a shame, and I know it's rather unlikely in the first place, but I thought it would have hit harder if Dave had shown a small bit of Ezra and Kanan's backstory in the show, just to put across to the casuals how strong their connection was to each other in Rebels. And another part of me is just kind of wanting to see my favorite character in live action, so, I'll just put my hands up there and move on. We then proceed to get the talk we were waiting for between Ahsoka and Sabine. I kind of expected it to go like this, especially after Ahsoka's experience in the last lesson from Anakin that we saw in episode 5. But it felt like we entirely glossed over the fact that Sabine never told Ezra how she got there, or it was just done off screen, because to me and lots of others, it's important to see how Ezra would react. I mean, he literally sacrificed 10 years of his life to send Thrawn away from the Empire, and Sabine is literally just bringing him back. I really think it would have been Ezra's character to not be super happy to know, and it feels like it was just another case of something being done off screen. With Huyang, though, we also learnt that the Siege of Mandalore was right towards the end of the war, and Ahsoka was training Sabine and then left her because she felt like she wanted to be a Jedi for the wrong reasons. So it was nice to finally get some small explanation that again was done off screen rather than, it could have been explained in the first 2 episodes of the show. We then get the 2 TIE fighters doing some serious damage to the ship, and Ahsoka and Ezra are forced to hold it up with the Force while Sabine tries to get the ship going. She eventually does and just flies straight into them and just walks away like there was going to be some cool guys don't look at explosions moment, but that whole scene ties into my opinions from before. Moving on, we then proceed to witness that aerial bombardment that did look pretty cool in all fairness. But all the heroes managed to get through the front door unharmed to then be fronted with Thrawn's troopers. Ezra really shined in this part for me. It was so cool to see him use a lightsaber again, and I felt his choreography was a little better than Ahsoka and Sabine's. But that's where we get the big twist that was kind of predicted. The mothers turn the stormtroopers undead, and they rise like zombies swarming out. This premise is super cool and something we haven't really seen before, and I loved it. But again, it just had me wondering why nobody thought to chop their heads off or some limbs. It really feels like everything has that Beskar Disney armor that would rather see someone stabbed than losing a limb. I mean, it's not like George Lucas never had dismemberment in the originals and the prequels. This scene was really good though. The dialogue between Ezra and Sabine stood out here, and it made me feel like I was really watching a live-action episode of Rebels, and I was all for it. Once they seal the doors and get more and more closer to Thrawn, this is where he uses Morgan as a sacrifice, with her doing it for Dathomir rather than the Empire, as Thrawn liked to mutter about 20 times in this episode. I mean, did anyone tell the guy that the Empire had fallen? I mean, the guy literally never said that once in any of the Thrawn books. The action really stepped up here though, and the choreography did, if I'm honest. Ahsoka's fight with Morgan has to be one of my favourite duels this season, and that says a lot with all that we've had over the last 8 weeks. The Kyners killed the score, and you could really tell Rosario and Diana had been working hard on this for a long time. To me, it felt like it was something pulled straight out of the Fallen Order games. This fight felt more like our animated Ahsoka more than any other fight we've seen her in live action. The way Morgan held the blade of Talzin was just so badass, and this will definitely be a scene I watch over and over. I enjoyed it that much. Meanwhile, during this, Sabine and Ezra move forward to try and get to Thrawn before being intercepted by the Night Troopers, who were also undead. We finally got to see the scene of Sabine using the Force, and it seemed like it was building up to it for a long time, and I won't lie, the saber going through the trooper's head with its glowing green was so cold. And in the end, I'm somewhat happy for Sabine. I'm still not super keen on her being a proper Jedi yet, but if they keep her still not being super strong in the Force, I am all for it. But then we instantly get Sabine's Force tree jumping up another level with her pushing Ezra across to the Chimera only a few minutes later. Whatever. Before she tries to make it across herself, she sees Ahsoka struggling with the overwhelming troopers and Elsbeth closing in on her, so she decides not to abandon Ahsoka this time and helps her out, seeing the eventual end of Morgan Elsbeth. More on Morgan though. As I said, I loved this scene, but for her to be the only real death of the season with Marok felt a little underwhelming. I mean, if Morgan had been fleshed out a little more and wasn't just the character that questions Thrawn so he could actually explain what he was doing, this might have felt a little more impactful. Morgan's character was super interesting, and Diana Lee and Stanto did a fantastic job, and I hope we can get some more of her backstory in like a novel or an animated show. I think people forget that before the Night Mothers were introduced in the show, it was only her and Merrin that were, the only Night Sisters still alive that we know of. Thrawn proceeds to bombard the castle from the skies, hoping for a last-ditch effort to distract Ahsoka when Huyang gets in and saves the day, fixing the ship in just perfect time, just in time to chase the Chimera before it gets away. With the engine still not being strong enough, we get our first interaction between Ahsoka and Thrawn, with Thrawn telling Ahsoka he basically knew what to do, because she is Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, and she would act the same as him, and then questions that she could become what he became, ending his talk with, "Long live the Empire." Not a fan, but Hey-ho. With 10 minutes to go in this episode, I was wondering where on earth Baylan and Shin were, and we did get those answers. Starting with Shin, her story is still clearly untold, and I'm sure we'll get more of her in live action somewhere down the line, and potentially in a season 2. She finds a new home pretty much within the Raiders, and that's really where her story ends this season. There's plenty to speculate about her character, and we will definitely be doing that here on this channel, so make sure to stay tuned. Baylan's Skull. First off, I just want to thank Ray Stevenson for all of his work. I don't think it was intended for him to become probably the best and most interesting character in the show, but man, Ray smashed it out this park, and it is such a shame that we won't be able to see his story continue with him as the actor. So just, rest in peace, Ray Stevenson, and thank you for bringing such a unique and badass character to life. In the scene, we get what could be the best shot in all of Star Wars, and pretty much confirms all of our theories about Abeloth. But it 100% solidifies the Mortis Arc ties that have been dropped in small pieces throughout the season. There's plenty to break down from this shot alone, but what stands out the most is the fact that the daughter has no head. And could that maybe be because a new daughter has arrived in Ahsoka? Baylan definitely has the coolest adventure ahead, and I really do hope this is explored more in the new season, if we get one. We then get to see Thrawn approaching Dathomir with the tremendous amount of cargo brought from Peridea that I believe might be sleeping Night Sisters that will be revived and become a threat coming forward in the new shows. But reunion time. Hera finally gets 5 minutes of happiness, with Ezra making his return from Peridea, somehow getting off that ship undetected. Okay. A callback to the few times Ezra wore Stormtrooper armor in Rebels. He walks off the ship, and what I find beautiful is Chopper instantly knows for some reason, and we really need someone to translate what he was saying, because I can't piece it out, but we definitely know that there is some dialogue there. But thank God he's home. With the amount of times he mentioned going home, I was panicking. Going into this episode, I was just thinking that he was going to die because it was leaked a couple times that someone was going to die in the last episode, but thank God. But yeah, seriously, Dave, let Hera hug someone, and where's Jason? I needed that interaction this season, not next season. Ending this episode, we are here with Sabine and Ahsoka looking out into the light in the distance. I really don't know what's going to happen next season. Are they just going to stay stuck here together, or what? And then we end with Force Ghost Anakin. Man, I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff. I loved it, and as much as it might be bad, I really hope for more Hayden in Season 2. He's done so brilliantly this season, and it's been amazing to see all the love he's been getting. But that ended the season for us. The episode was a solid last episode for me. Wasn't everything I wanted, but it really makes me want more. It's a shame we have to wait as long as we probably will with the writers and actor strikes, but it gives us plenty of time to make up more theories that, you can see on this channel. I honestly give this finale a 7.5 out of 10, pretty much with me leaning on the fence. There were so many cool things in this episode that I loved, and some things just fell a little bit flat and was a little short of my expectations, but overall it was really solid. Anyway, what did you guys think? Did the finale meet expectations, or did it fall short for you? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested to hear what everybody thinks. My full Ahsoka review should be coming in the next few days, so stick around for that. But in the meantime, take care, have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed Ahsoka, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.